Good evening, spirits. Greetings in the sign of the rising sun. It's the wise servant of the life, Pazumpasset, Mr. Solace, peace and wisdom. Now this evening I want to do this video called Is the Bible Symbolical or Literal? I also want to speak on the book of Jasper because one of my viewers asked me to do a video on the book of Jasper. But he didn't say on what. So it's like someone saying, do a video on the Bible, but they don't say what part. But I'll speak on the book of Jasper towards the end of the video. For now, I want to deal with the question, is the Bible symbolical or literal? Now, before I get into this, I want to make this clear. I am not promoting the religion of Christianity in any way. In all reality, y'all need to learn to separate the religion from the wisdom that's in the book. It's a very deep thing. Religious perspective is applied to the book. And this is the interference with grasping. Now, I use the Bible when teaching because many people are Christians in today's times. So it's a very deep thing. Even those who go with comedic science and many different things, but behind closed doors, they believe in God. It even slips out sometimes. So it's a very deep thing I want you guys to grasp. But in no way am I promoting the religion in any way. The books have nothing to do with the religion. So it's a very deep thing, but I want to be clear on that. Now, is the Bible symbolical or literal? In today's times, you will have many of the brothers tell you the Bible is not to be taken literal or taken literal. It's about symbology, astrology, anything, but it's not literal, if you get my drift. Now, that statement is interesting. The Bible is symbolical. It's not to be taken literal. What's interesting about that statement is all symbols represent a literal thing. Grasp that. Every symbol represents a literal thing. So this is a money sign, but it represents a real literal bill. We have the cross. That's a symbol. But it represents a real thing. North, south, east, west. And it doesn't just stop there, but north, south, east, west isn't physical in a sense. But, the cross is physical. And people physically got crucified. So everything kind of plays out physically, but to say a thing is symbolical and not literal makes no sense. In order for you to have a symbol, you have to have a literal thing first. If not, name some symbol that has nothing to do with a literal thing. Just one. Because the literal thing comes first, and then we have the symbol which represents it. So if someone tells you, man, the Bible is symbolical, but it's not literal, well, that makes no sense. A thing can be literal and have no symbology attached to it. But a thing cannot. Symbology always has to do with the literal thing. So y'all have to grasp, a lot of people say things that make absolutely no sense, but it's a very deep thing. You have Adam and Eve. The whole story with the Garden of Eden and the eating of the fruit. and then being kicked out of the garden. And many people will tell you, no, it wasn't about eating fruit, but it was symbology for sex. Symbology for this. But mainly you'll hear, mainly you'll hear sex. Now it's a deep thing because sex is a literal thing. So it's like, it's deep. People don't grasp. They don't get the underlying point. Now I said Adam and Eve, Garden and Eve story it's about being born. It's talking about the womb and how they were kicked out the womb. And, from there, you know, welcome to life. So it's a deep thing. The Bible says they were clothed in skins and, we have skins. But people don't grasp. Now they say that's symbolical, but having sex and being born are not, that's deep. That's literal, But people don't grasp, People will tell me, man, Adam and Eve story ain't got nothing to do with the womb. It's symbology for sex, but wombs and sex go together. Being born and sex goes together. So y'all just like to argue, I see. It's a very deep thing you have to grasp. There's no symbology when you're dealing with the Bible. It's all literal, but it's a matter of people grasping. For some reason, we separate being born from reality. So it's a deep thing when the Bible is explaining a person being born and it's put into the content of Garden of Eden. People just don't grasp. For some reason, it's a deep thing, but it's not symbology. You got the story of Jesus, and people say, man, this is symbology for the age of Aquarius. That's why you had the fish and the walking on water, etc., etc. But you have to grasp. That's a literal thing, If that is symbology for the age of Aquarius, then the age of Aquarius is the end of a cycle. Either the beginning or the end of a cycle. Now, I told you guys the cycles have to do with, the worldwide catastrophe that happens at the end of every cycle. And this is how you got the flood story in the Bible. With the men of old. Speaking of men before, men from the past cycle coming over into the next one. So you can kind of say like the age of Aquarius and then Taurus. And, it's a deep thing when you're dealing with this on a solar level. These all happen within like 3,000 year periods. Change of the constellation, so to say. And at the end of every change, you get a end of days, so to say. So this is what Jesus was prophesying. This is what Noah was prophesying. The end of an age or the end of the cycle. Like I keep trying to explain to you guys. But this is all literal. This is not symbology. See, men understand things surface level. So they understand astrology somewhat, but they don't understand that the whole purpose of knowing astrology is to know these events. The whole purpose of being a meteorologist is to foretell the weather. So people will know what the weather is. If you're a meteorologist, but all you can do is say, man, this is how you tell the weather, but you don't actually tell the weather. What's the point? What's the point of your teacher knowing, the Bible is based on astrology, but he doesn't get the point? Okay, it's based on astrology, so you're an astrologist. So now, forecast or foretell the solar events. Tell me the weather for the solar, because it affects us. And this is my point. Brothers grasp things on the most minute surface level. But then there's no conclusion. So it's a deep thing. None of this stuff is symbolical. I mean, you have symbols attached to everything, but you can't lose your perspective on the literal point of anything. So it's a deep thing. Very deep. It's just like with the Neteru gods. You have all the Neteru gods, and it's a deep thing because they didn't even have anything about. They didn't have gods. This is a modern day word. This is a religious word of today times. So you see how we attach our perspective of things on other things. So the Kemetic science of old, it has nothing to do with that perspective of God. They don't have that word God. They never heard of that in that times. So the whole God aspect that we have, they know nothing of that. They didn't refer to the Neteru as God in any way. They don't know what that word means. They don't have a word like it. They don't. Neteru does not translate to mean God, but they don't know what Neteru means. So they like it. It's like God. It's something like that. But it's a deep thing. They had no word God. That is a modern day perspective placed on ancient science. So it's a very deep thing. Then we say that the Neteru gods is symbology for this thing or that thing. And the ancient Kemetic people had a lot of symbology, but everything they were speaking was literal. It's like I said, all symbols represent a real thing, but people don't grasp. So they can't grasp that Set represents the uterus or the Baphomet. A Set or Isis, she represents the egg cell. That Set, the Baphomet or the monster of hell guards. So it's a deep thing, or the underworld. So it's a deep thing people just don't grasp because they don't understand everything being broken down with a symbol is to represent a literal thing. Now they weren't really these were just their names for these things, like we call it an egg cell and a sperm cell, and they didn't have these words. Sperm cell was a saw. But their understanding was so much deeper that they tied in the birth of a star or the birth of a cell. It's all the same process. Sperm cells are spirits getting egg cells or bodies. So it's a deep thing you have to grasp. They didn't have all the separations we have in a sense. I mean, they called them different names, but it was no confusion. But it's a deep thing. We view all this stuff as symbology, but it's literal. Geb. Geb is the penis. The male uterus, you can say, or the male reproductive organ. The whole system. Geb is that. That's where spirits or sperm cells or rasar comes from. So it's a deep thing. That's why Geb is always referred to as seed. We confuse Geb as seed and earth, and we don't understand. Seed goes to earth. Earth is like egg cell or proton neutron. It is what is penetrated by seed. So Geb is that. And nut is just like the space. Nut is the female reproductive, but more than that, she's like the space that the uterus is in. So Set is like the uterus of the Baphomet, and Nut is all of that space that all of that is in. And Geb is, that's why Nut is always over Geb. She's like the sky, the space that all of that is in. Set or Saw, a Set. She's the space all of that in. And Geb has to do with a Saw because he releases the spirits. He opens his jaws. So it's a deep thing, the penis. But people just don't grasp. And, Nephthys is just the body, the whole body, the lady of the house or the temple. Body is the temple. So you have to grasp. Nephthys is the woman. And everything that's within a woman is what is being broken down when you're speaking of the Neteru. And Geb and Asar is just, the male perspective into this whole process that we call being born, or the building blocks of life. Because it starts from the atom when you're dealing with the Neteru. So it's a deep thing people have to grasp. But none of this is symbology. It's all literal. Symbols is to help you grasp reality. Because I guess it's a hard thing to grasp. I don't know. But I want to speak on the Book of Jasper before I end this video. I don't really feel like doing a video today. It's a deep thing. I don't even know why I did. But we've already begun, so I want to touch on the Book of Jasper right quick before I end this video. But before I do that, I want to say this. Some of us, or most of us, come to a point in life where we ask ourselves, who am I? When someone asks you who you are, you say, I am. So it's an interesting thing. Am I is what you ask yourself. Who am I? And externally, when someone asks you, you say, I am. Am I when speaking to self, and I am when speaking to others. Forget it. Too deep for y'all. I don't feel like doing that. It's going to make the video longer. So I'm going to just touch on the Book of Jasper before I cut this video. I guess I'll come back and do another video on the I am and the am I. Because it's a deep thing. Remember that. The I am and the am I. And that deep ass video that I did where I said before men had language, what language was their thoughts in? Got to do with that. The am I and the I am. But when you're dealing with the Book of Jasper, I'm not sure how many people have read this. A lot of things be classified as pseudo and weird stuff. And this is just because people don't know anything. That's the deepest thing in the world of grasp. But the Book of Jasper is one of the ancient texts of old. One of the ancient texts of old. And we all know the Bible uses 66 of the ancient books, meaning ancient texts. It uses 66 of them. Now, there's many ancient texts, way more than 66. But the Bible uses 66 of them. Now, the Book of Jasper is one of the many ancient texts. Now, the Bible does use the Book of Jasper, but it changes the name. It basically breaks it down into parts. And we have it as Genesis, Deuteronomy, Exodus, Leviticus, whatever. But all of that is pretty much the Book of Jasper. So the Book of Jasper kind of stops at Joseph, you can say, in a sense. So it's a deep thing. But the Bible mentions the Book of Jasper. So if you're having trouble and you're like, man, how I know the Book of Jasper is real? Well, in 2 Samuel's, it mentions the Book of Jasper. Uses the Book of Jasper as a reference for that book. Meaning you're reading the Bible, so it uses the Book of Jasper as a reference for the reader. So the Book of Jasper holds more reference than the Bible, because the Bible used the Book of Jasper. The Book of Jasper as a reference. Or Jasher. I'm sorry, I forgot which name it was. Jasher or Jasper. But it uses it as a reference. So the Book of Jasper doesn't use the Bible as a reference, because the Bible is after. So I just want to give you a perspective. Now, it's a deep thing I want you guys to grasp when you're dealing with the book of Jasper. It goes more in depth. So, when you're dealing with the Bible in Genesis, Deuteronomy, all these things, you're not getting a full story. This is why it references the book of Jasper and things like this. It does that because the Bible is not giving you the full breakdown of these stories, like the Moses story, the Adam and Eve story, Hebrew Israelite story. It's not giving you the entire breakdown of these stories. It's just skimming through them to give you a perspective. So everything you read in the Bible, from Genesis to the New Testament, it is all just a quick breakdown. So you're not getting the full story in detail, but you're just getting a quick rundown. So it builds you up to the New Testament. So it skims through ancient texts, giving you a quick understanding, just to get you to the New Testament part, because this deals with the religion and the conditioning of the mind. So it kind of attaches old ancient books of history to this new book. And it's a deep thing, but the new book is history as well. The New Testament, it's history as well, but it has nothing to do with the ancient history, but it was attached to it. So it's a deep thing. And all the 66 books, they were pretty much, puzzle pieces in a sense, are used in that way. Because none of them go together, but they just put them together. So it's a deep thing. The book of Jasper, though, I don't want you to think like, oh, so the Moses story and all of that don't go together. The book of Jasper is pretty much that. So the beginnings of the Bible that you read, from Moses all the way up to not from Moses, but from in the beginning all the way up to the Hebrew Israelite shit. That's all the book of Jasper. But the book of Jasper goes in detail. So now I've read these books like a decade ago. I'm not going to even lie. Long time ago. There's the book of Jubilees. I'm not even sure if the book of Jubilees and the book of Jasper is the same. I believe they're the same book because all these books are so similar. But I believe the book of Jubilees is the same book as the book of Jasper, but you know how it be. Some people call one thing this, some people call it that. But if I say something wrong, then it must be because the book of Jubilees and the book of Jasper is different, and I'm confused them. Not confused them, but I've somehow merged them. Because like I said, they're the same book. So it's like if you're reading the Torah in the Bible. It's the same book. So it's a deep thing, but the Bible may miss something that the Torah says. Therefore, if you were breaking down the Bible and you mention something that the Torah says that the Bible doesn't, then a person would get lost and say, huh? So the book of Jubilees and the book of Jasper may be like that. But I believe they're the exact same book. If my memory serves me correct, I didn't see absolutely no difference in the text. But it's a deep thing when you're dealing with the book of Jasper. It goes in detail. So it explains to you, when they got kicked out the garden and everything, and how they began to eat. And, they didn't know anything. So when the sun rose, they thought they were going to die. And I'm just giving you a quick breakdown, but it goes in detail. It explains how Adam and Eve lived in a cave, overlooking the land. Now, in today's times, we get lost when we hear the word cave. I don't know what's wrong with people, but you can make a very beautiful dwellings out of a cave. But the way they explained the cave, they had the fire in the front. So you just imagine a big-ass cave overlooking the land. And when you walk in, of course, the cave is within a big-ass mountain. And when you walk in, you got the fireplace set up nicely. Probably got granite marble floors or however they chose to decorate it. Because, you got nothing but rock around you. So, the things we make like granite and all this out of, that's all around them. So then you decorate the cave however you choose and make it beautiful. But they dwelt in the cave over the plain of the city, and it breaks down, their beginnings, Adam and Eve, and how they had to get familiar with eating and things like this. And when they first ate, they thought they were going to die because they never experienced eating and shitting. And it explains how when they first seen the sunrise, they thought they were going to die because they didn't know what that was. And when night came, they thought they were going to die. And it just breaks down every detail, And then they had children, Cain and Abel. And then it explains how Cain killed Abel, and he pretty much ran away after that. And he left the cave. They pretty much dwelled above the flat land, the plain or whatever. So you know how mountains are if you're on a mountain and you're looking over the city, but there is no city yet, then they just overlooking, the forest land. But in any event, after Cain killed Abel, he left from dwelling with them in the cave. Now you gotta grasp when you dealing with the mountain, you have grassland on the mountain and growing food and all of that all around the mountain. So I don't want you to think they're in a cave. They live no different than anybody, but it's nobody supposedly yet in that sense. But there is, but they're down, in the forest, the flatland or whatever, and they're up in the mountains. So long story short, Cain kills Abel when he leaves. Cain is the first person to build a city. So Cain, when he leaves, he goes down there, he builds the city, and they can overlook the land, so they seeing what's going on. And then Cain builds the city, he names it after his son Enoch. This is the first city, but you don't have no kingship or none of that type of shit yet. But of course, people begin to dwell in Cain's land. And this is how you get kingship, because he leaves this to his son, so on and so forth, and more cities is built, so on and so forth. Then you get to Canaan. This is Cain's line. So Cain's the first city builder. Before this, all you got is forest. Motherfuckers dwelling in caves. But the caves is beautiful, but they dwelling in caves. Or you can view it as man's beginnings. He just dwelling in a cave. He ain't really acquired knowledge to build and shit like this yet. Then generations later, he does. This is Cain's time and Abel's time. And then Cain separates himself from the cave dwellers and he builds a city. So I'm giving you the perspective. This is what it says, though. You can read the book of Jasper, but I'm just speaking in real time. Because this speaks in ancient times, like how they speak. But, Cain separated himself. And he goes, now he's the first person to build a city. And then, he has descendants, and this is how you get kingship. And, they build cities as well. And kingship is passed down, and this is how you kind of get that. Then you get to Canaan. This is Cain's line. Now, Canaan is the first king. So it's a deep thing. Basically, Cain is the first person to build a city. And all his descendants after him, they all built cities as well. And then when you get to Canaan, he's the first one to be king. So now you got people that are not a part of, Cain's family dwelling in the land. So now, you get kingship. So Canaan is the first king. And men begin to get lost into the city stuff. So it's a deep thing. They begin to get separated from the life, lost into the city stuff. Same way you see today, the slavery, all the weird stuff. Men get lost, shit get crazy. Then you get the flood. Then after the flood, you have Nimrod, Ham's descendant. He's the first one to bring this back. Kingship, kingdoms, and nations. So he's the first one after the flood to build a city. Cain is the first before. Or Cain is the first person after the Garden of Eden to build a city. And after the flood, Nimrod is first. So it's a deep thing. Now, you know, Ham is deep. Ham is supposed to be the, I don't even feel like getting into all of that, but it just basically breaks down, you know, pretty much what I already explained to y'all in many videos. You know, how the giants of old are the men of old, men of renown are the men from the past cycle, meaning before the flood. And you know, this always happens. And it's just a deep thing. I'll come back and I'll do a video on the book of Jasper, going more deep, like how I do with the Bible, you know. You can call this an introduction to the book of Jasper if you've never read it. In the same way, I come back and I do videos about the Bible, different parts of it, you know, because the Bible is a long book, so is the book of Jasper. It's not as long as the Bible, but it's long. So I'll come back and break that down. Jubilees, if you're wondering, the book of Jubilees. Jubilees just means 2 scores and a half a score. So like 50 years is what a jubilee is. So this is just a word of time in the past, you know. A jubilee was basically like a generation and a half, you can say. Because a generation in ancient times was like 33 years. So a jubilee was like a generation and a half a generation. So it's a deep thing. Or 2 scoring a half a score. A score is 20 years. So this is just ancient talk. Everybody got their talk of time. In Abraham Lincoln time, you know, they spoke in scores when you was dealing with 20 years. So we have like a decade. That means 10. We have a century. That's 100. A millennium is 1,000. And a score was 20. And 50 was a jubilee. So it's simple. You got decade, score, jubilee. So that's 10, 20, 50. A century is 100. A millennium is 1,000. So it's just that. That whole, that's still around. We just don't use it. But this is not like lost. I'm not telling you anything that's like lost knowledge. This is I ain't gonna say everybody. Most people probably don't know this, but this is just, it's common, it's known. It's not like weird. It just probably may be weird to someone who doesn't know this, but this is how you keep, this is words for long spans of time. So, you know, a year. And then after that, you have 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. And then, you know, if you want to say 10 years or something like that, it's just a decade. Decade, a score, and jubilee. So on and so forth, century, millennium, all the way to eon. But that's all that meant. So the book of Jubilees is just a book of time, book of history. So simple thing. And book of Jasper is the same goddamn thing as the book of Jubilees. So it's a deep thing, but it's the wise servant, Mr. Solace. I'll come back and get more in detail in the book of Jasper. Make some deep points, because the book of Jasper is just explaining how men were one with the life, you know, and how they slowly begin to get separated. They begin to put separation between themselves. I'm this, you're that, and they just become separated in every aspect from the life. So it's deeper than separating themselves from one another with nationality and kingdoms, but the kingdoms separate them from the forest, which is the life. This is where you get your food, everything you need in life. So it's just a book of explaining how men become separated from the life over generations, all the way till you get to the point where we at now, where a brother come along and say, man, we got to get back to the life. The life is all. What y'all refer to as God, well, that's the life. And y'all have no correlation. Like, what is he talking about? The life. You life. Everything around you life. But it's like, huh? So it's deep. And this is what they meant. How all those things become a separation to the point where a person is a complete stranger in the life. Their life and the life completely a stranger to it. This is how that happens, you know? You get cities, and this is the beginning of that. So a man decides, I'm going to build me a city, and we view this as, hey, I don't see nothing wrong with that. But it leads to that. So from that city, you get kingship, meaning people get ruled over. From that, you get nationality. From that, you get people that's slow to catching on and naming themselves and being a part of a nationality. Some people ain't got family. So now they're left out to be Hebrews on the land, meaning an immigrant, someone without a nationality, an immigrant, but more than that, a nationalityless immigrant. But this is how all of those things happen. And then from there, you get homosexuality and killing and crime and robbery because people are packed on top of each other and people are working and struggling and it ain't enough work and stuff for everybody. And the system is based on work, the city system. You get according to what you work for. If it ain't enough work for everybody, then that creates a problem. But it's a deep thing. This is how all that happens, and it starts with the city. So building cities is a sin against the life. It always was. This is what all of this is about. So when you come to real life, because y'all view the Bible and all of this as fake life, but when you come to real life and you dealing with America and the Caucasians coming over here, it's the same story. They came here and took them away from the life. They built a city here. And what happened? So the Bible is explaining the things you seeing in your time. Like, yo, you live in a city. It's deep. The place that you live in, it wasn't like that. It was a forest. It was a part of the life. And when you build a city, this is what happens. It takes people from the life. You get bloodshed. It becomes a whole different existence. So it's a deep thing we have to grasp as people. We start to get lost and think forests mean, oh, I'm going to be back in ancient times. Ain't nobody said nothing about you can't have Wi-Fi cable and everything you got. But the way we live in these cities, these are men's kingdoms, literally. And y'all are working to build up other men's kingdoms to rule over the masses. And this is a problem. So Cain, first man to build the city. And it led to Canaan being the first king. So it's a deep thing. What is a king? Rule over a city. Who lives in cities? People. So if you're the ruler over a city, what does a city consist of? People. But we get lost. We view kingship and rulership forgetting what end of the stick you're on. But it's deep. This is how we got in that boat. And this is why that has to stop. This is why I be teaching about the life, saying we got to get the land. Not so people could live off grid and suffer, for people could build up their own cities and rule over people, but for y'all to truly grasp what all the ancient texts and everything y'all read, the underlying message it's saying is y'all are suffering for no reason. We can have heaven now or hell. It's all on the person's mind. It's not a death thing. It never was. We can have gold floors, but we wear our gold on our neck. And we use it as business and sell and buy. We got this whole stupid system. So all the gold and resources and silver and things that is truly just here for us to make use of. But we use it for stupid shit to rule over one another. But all the gold and silver can be used as the same way we use cement. Can use that. And that's better for the ground. Because you know metals they conduct energy. They energy conductors. And you know what the ground is, meaning the soil. So it's a deep thing we got to grasp. We can have gold floors, gold streets, streets of gold and silver. But it's a deep thing when you got cities Men gonna rip the floor up because people starving. You're living in that system where it's buy and sell instead of just live. Live the best life you can live. Get all you can get out of the life in fairness and balance. Truly grasping. But we not at that point, I see. You know, it's a very deep thing. This is why I said I didn't really feel like doing a video today. I'm kind of losing my spirit talking to the people. It's a deep thing, you know, not losing my spirit, but I'm losing the spirit of even wanting to reach y'all. It's like y'all lost. People watch my videos, they say, oh yeah, this is deep, man, you the best. And the videos is deeper than that. I don't even mention the haters. It's not that many. It's more people that say, you know, good things. But the videos is not about that. It's not about, you know, oh, it's that shit deep, Silas, you the best. I mean, I appreciate the kind words. I don't want you guys to stop speaking kind words because this is a good thing. You know, get used to speaking kind words. There's no need to say ugly things, but still, the knowledge is for more than that. The whole point of the knowledge is for action. And people are not grasping. It's just a matter of just looking. You got people that's like, it's deep, man. I feel like there's at least one person or two people out there that truly grasp and just ain't saying nothing. And it's deep. I feel like all of this is just a matter of me to attract a certain person or a few people so that we could, you know, do divine things in our life and just be, you know, a bright beacon of light amidst all this darkness. Not to mix the two, but just to be that. And it's a deep thing. Forget teaching, just all action. You just like, damn, the way they living is, it's amazing. And we just live the right ways and enjoy life in totality without all the slave stress. So it's a deep thing, but in any event, it's the wise servant of the life, Mr. Solace, Pasampaset. Peace and wisdom.